how you found me or how you found the program, I guess.
Okay. Hi, my name is Joann Gentili. I'm from Clarkston, Michigan, and I found Camille on an Instagram ad, and I joined like a free webinar about walking through your kitchen project, and I probably spent, I think it was a weekend, like 2.5 hours each day. So I think I spent 5 hours listening, and realized that first, Camille knew what she was doing, and it basically highlighted what I needed to do. As far as, yes, I had a million Pinterest posts and a lot of ideas that I just hadn't pulled the trigger on, or I wasn't able to tie them together. And I felt that after listening to that free portion, I realized that that is what I needed, was someone to help me with much more knowledge than I had, to pull it together and tell me why certain ideas were going to be tossed away and which ones were going to be kept. And at that point, I kind of decided that I needed to be in the program, and it was worth it for me to have a design coach. And that is what I have found.
Yeah, that's great. What do you remember back to when you first, because you've been in for now, it's been almost a year, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so when you originally joined, we were going to do stuff pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And then as things happened, right, your father
Yep.
passed away, which was really super
Right.
sad, and your family
Yep.
was dealing with that for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember, though, before that happened, like how you felt, or because you'd been thinking about this for years, doing your kitchen?
Years. Right.
So where were you at before you even found my free class?
We had basically we were at a fork in the road where we have a very small kitchen, and we had two possibilities. One, we were just going to remodel the small kitchen that we had so it would be updated and fresh, or kind of pursue a dream that we'd had since we moved in, 30 years ago, to one day expand out, like build out, like actually add a room that would enlarge the kitchen and then have a bigger eating area, or like a dining room, but it's not going to be a 4-wall dining room. So that was the first question. I needed to find out what the estimates of each piece would be, to see if it would fit into our budget, to see if it was something we should continue to walk down that path, or scrap that idea and just work with the smaller kitchen renovation. And the great thing about Camille was that what she said was, hey, let's walk down this first path, get some estimates, see how it will work. And if we can't, we'll go back to the drawing board and then just start with this small kitchen and go from there. So what we started to do, and my concern was that maybe Camille wouldn't want to do that, like walk down one path and then find out we couldn't do it and then start over again. But you were very, very helpful in that regard, saying like, no matter what project we're going to do, I'll walk through it with you. And once we started, I had a lot of big questions that you were initially able to help me with. Like, I really wanted a window at the sink, but it didn't seem to work with the layout that we needed, and trying to overcome my anxiety about not having a window, a sink at the window, but rather in an island, and whether we were going to do a galley kitchen or just the configuration of where everything needed to be. And once we got those big questions taken care of, then we started to be more detailed with what we needed to do. But I had some big issues that I had to have you kind of give me the pros and cons of first before we would move forward.
Yeah. So it was helpful to have like a sounding board to run stuff by, but then with the expertise, like give you the real options of what that's going to cost or what that's going to entail, or whether I thought that was a good idea or not. Right. It's just my expert opinion on that was very helpful.
Right. Because I had things narrowed down. Like I said, if I'd like this, this, and this, which one do you think is best? Should I put the island this way and configure the cupboards around here or on the window? I had a couple different layouts, probably like 3, very, very roughly drawn. And you kind of walked me through which one you thought would be the best layout and why. And then that helped me tremendously, because then again, another roadblock was taken away. So then you could move forward with that. And then the next thing you know, I'm not thinking about that anymore, because, we talked about it. You said, yeah, I don't think this will be a good idea because, and this will be better because, and then you can kind of push aside where you were blocked and move forward. So that was very helpful, because then you just start, okay, now what's the next task then? Once I figured out this part, what do I have to do next?
Yeah. So was it, would you say there was a lot of relief of just sort of having questions that you'd had for a long time just running through your head? Like, is that kind of how you felt?
Absolutely, because you feel very stuck and you don't know that much information. All you have are ideas. You don't know what's possible. You don't know what should go first. And it was a relief because, I know you kind of say like, it's like a kitchen coach. Yes, it is, because you do feel, first of all, it's so personal, where if you walk into a store, in my opinion, you get a short amount of time, they're moving on to somebody else, and you feel like you don't have all your questions answered, where there are a lot of little questions that you kind of need answered to feel like, okay, I've exhausted that possibility, I can move on. And you feel like you have somebody holding your hand through it, because it's a gigantic project, and you really are, it's nerve-wracking to spend that much money on any piece, whether it's a small renovation or a big renovation, without someone who has experience caring about every step of the way. And honestly, I do feel like you do care about every part of the process, even though I call about little tiny details. And you still, make me feel like, yep, I understand that question, and are able to address that, because there are things that just linger that you need to get addressed so that you can move forward. And it is a big sense of relief, because if you don't do it every day, you don't know. So it's very, very comforting to have someone that knows walk you through it.
Yeah, that's good. Well, so I'm glad you brought up that feeling of comfort, because that's kind of the purpose of the program, is for it to feel like there is somebody on your side, and that you have some level of comfort, and your mind is eased with some of this stuff, even if it turns out maybe something's just more expensive than you want to spend,
Right.
or whatever, you at least have an answer. And now you can really think about, okay, do we want to save more money? Do we want to pull money out of state? Like, what do we want to do with that? But you're really solving problems. You're not just going around and around and around. So I'm glad I'm glad that's coming through. That's that's the purpose of the program. So I'm glad that's coming through. So how fun was it on the very first call? Can you kind of remember? You and I have had many interactions, which we both.
The first time that we actually, that it was my day, you mean?
Your first day, your special day after you just signed up.
Right.
And we had our very first meeting where you kind of were able to tell me all the things that you've been thinking about for years. Like, you remember how fun that call was, and sort of maybe what you felt like when you came into it, and then what you felt like after we hung up.
Well, of course, I always feel like, will I be able to get all my thoughts out and have you organize them for me? Which I think you did, because there, like I said, there are so many questions and so many different directions. And maybe because you've done this for years, you are able, I think, to pull the ideas together and kind of see what we really want, even though our minds kind of going in different directions. I do remember you drawing like the initial layouts of how it might look, how, where things could be placed. And again, you start feeling like you're actually making progress. And that was very exciting, where you felt like, okay, I have a plan now. And again, answering the questions that are just, I have lists of questions and lists of photos that you're trying to even look at photos and say, I like these 10 photos. What do you think it is that's pulling me in each of these photos? Because they're different, but yet there's something about them that I like. So, trying to have someone else look at them and say, okay, I can really see what it is that you're going for. But I do remember like the drawings and pulling those together. And again, not feeling rushed, where you took the time. I had as much time as I needed to explain everything. That has been in my head for a long, long time. So you knew where I was coming from and what direction I might want to go, and not feeling rushed and having someone actually really listen, very important.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad I sometimes take probably too much time because I'm enjoying myself so much that, I kind of lose track of time myself. So I think that's great. Okay. So that was the first meeting. And then, after we got off that call, like, what were you thinking you were going to do next? Like, if it had been just that call, would it have been worth the price? Would it have been?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. For sure. Because like I said, I had so many, real logistical questions. I know positively that just having like a designer, just any kind of interior designer, I don't know if you want me to talk dollars here in Michigan, but a couple of years ago, I know it was $400 for someone to come and do one room, just to come. If I wanted my living room, if I needed some advice on my living room, it would have been $400. So with the amount of work that I think is in a kitchen, and everything that you have to think about in a kitchen. And we've talked about this, like I love where you say, where am I going to put my Ziploc bags? That is an actual question. Like, where's my silverware going to be? Where's my tea drawer going to be? You know, I'd like to have a tea drawer. Can I have a tea drawer? I know that, yeah, I think it's $500 at that time, you know, to join the program. I absolutely got my questions answered that I needed, you know. Like I said, months ago, it was so worth it because I'm so much further down the path. I'm so much farther than where I've ever been before. And now actually we are moving forward. And one of our questions at that time was, can we move forward? Do we have to pull back? So, and having us actually make decisions, not just sit, you know, for another year, for another year, for another year, trying to actually make the decision. And I think that was very helpful too. Actually making the decision to join the program was a big decision, because then it made us say, we're going to make a decision. Are we going to do the kitchen? How are we going to do it? So joining the program pushed us to make the decision. So once we already said, well, we've got $500 invested in someone helping us with the kitchen, we better actually decide to do it. We just didn't know how we were going to do it, which path, the small path or the big path. So that was a jump start to even making us move forward. So yes, absolutely worth it.
So, okay, so that brings us to, so you decided to join. We had a great first meeting. We always have a very lively meeting. And then after that, we decided that we were gonna, well, I think we had started to work on cabinets, and then you had to pull back because of the family stuff, right? And so you really couldn't move forward for quite some time. What was it like to know that you could come back anytime, no matter what was going on in your personal life? Like, how did that feel? Just knowing that I was kind of there when you were ready.
Yes, because that's exactly what you said. Makes me very emotional because you sent me a card and you said, I'll be there when you're ready. And we just had to stop there. It wasn't fun at the moment. You know, my dad had passed away. It was very unexpected. It was a sad time. So doing something of this nature and this size and scope, it just didn't feel happy, and it wasn't right. It wasn't the right time. I couldn't even emotionally be excited about it because I was sad in other areas of my life. So knowing that it wasn't like, oh my gosh, she said I have 3 months and that's it, and now I'm going to lose that money that I invested. I had that comfort of knowing when I'm ready to return to this project, Camille will be there. So that was huge. It took that weight off of my shoulders. It took that pressure off of my shoulders. I do kind of believe that everything happens for a reason and in its time. So when we were ready to kind of re-engage, you know, I let you know, and then we kind of started taking next steps. But yeah, that was very, very valuable.
Yeah, that's
Appreciate
awesome.
it.
Yeah, I'm that's like a real world example. I mean, I wish life didn't constantly keep interrupting kitchens, but it seems to be pretty much the norm, you know, because kitchens take a long time to plan and actually implement, and it's not just 3 weeks or 4 weeks like everybody always is telling you, you know.
Right.
So the reality is just so much stuff can happen in a year, and so that's why I have that program be for a year, the support, because I just know the reality is it's, you know, something might happen.
Right.
And that's why we have such a good completion rate, because we stick with people until they get their kitchen, right? So,
Right. And that was, you said that too, like, we will be with you until it's complete. So that's very helpful.
Yeah, good. So, okay. So then when you kind of gently came back into the program, we started kind of picking it back up and rethinking it again and getting acquainted with it again. Do you kind of remember where you were at that point? Because you'd gotten some stuff settled with your family. Like, how were you feeling or thinking when you sort of re-entered the program again? Where were you at when that happened?
I think we were ready to get estimates on a build, because we needed to first know how much it would cost to do the exterior build. You were good at giving us estimates for the interior. You know, what would the cabinets run if we purchased them from you, and if we didn't, and how much would the countertops cost? You know, you were giving us like benchmarks of so we could kind of build like what our budget would be and what we hoped the build would be. Of course, the build was not exactly what we wanted to be, but it was, I wouldn't say close enough, but kind of close enough. It was in the uncomfortable zone where it wasn't too far out, but it wasn't where we wanted it. It was right in the middle where you could say it's too much, or no, we can make it work. So we decided to make it work. even though it was a little bit more than we had planned. But that's where we were. We were trying to get quotes from contractors on how much the exterior build would cost. We did wind up, I contacted probably 5 different builders and wound up getting actually just one real number bid. Maybe not the best decision to only go with that one, but it was someone that a trusted person. And it was just really difficult. People were retiring, people didn't have time, people were booked until spring. They wanted, like, I already had detailed drawings, like I had architectural drawings already, and people, like one company wanted me to go back and get them ready for permits, which would have been an additional expense, not that much, but I thought, can you not give me a bid, like just on these drawings, just a rough bid? And they didn't. So I was getting a little frustrated with that. I just wanted a number, so I could move forward. And after we discussed it, you felt like it sounded like a fair bid. So, and again, because it's a family that's very well known, like in the area, we decided to go ahead.
Yeah. So that's like another like part of the program that it's kind of hard to describe to people sometimes, that like when I say I'm sort of like your contractor that's not there, but I don't really have a horse in the race. So I'm unbiased. Like, how helpful was it having somebody that is a contractor, so understands the details, the specifics, the money, being able to talk through some of those decisions and work through those bids and talk about the bids, and should you go with this guy, should you pursue it, should you not? Like, how helpful was it just to have a knowledgeable person like on your side to even talk through that stuff?
Yes, it gives you a little bit of a security blanket, because you don't really know the questions to ask, and it gives you those tools, so you know what to ask when you're going in, and then you can, say, we're going to think about it, and then talk to my husband about it, and then come back to Camille and say, okay, this is what we found out, what do you think? And again, like you said, you're an unbiased person, like in this conversation, so you can say, yeah, that doesn't sound right, or I feel like at this point in time with the economy the way it is, that's a good way to go. But it always, I wound up doubting, you doubt yourself. Is this a good decision? Is this too much? Is this too much? Is this, like you said, is this going to look good? So you kind of need that little boost. It's not a $20, expenditure. So you need that extra, I guess, confirmation from somebody that you're making the right decisions, because it's a lot of money. So you have to really feel good about making the decisions. And as we've made the decisions, you're like, okay, decision made, moving forward, what's the next decision? So that has been very helpful.
Yeah. So you definitely feel that I have your best interests at heart, that you feel more confident when you're having these conversations, more knowledgeable, so that, because that's sort of part of the program, is I want to help you guys feel more educated yourself, so that you just present yourself better, right? Because you'll get better responses depending on how you kind of present yourself, right?
Right.
Do you feel like that kind of came through? Like,
I
if I
do.
hadn't been there,
I do. And I
would
thought
you
it
have,
was,
yeah, what would
it
you
was
have done
funny
if I
too.
wasn't there?
Pardon me, say that again.
I said, like, what would you have done if I wasn't there?
I still wouldn't have my kitchen going. I for sure wouldn't. And like, I had to laugh because, Camille and I had spent a minimum of probably 10 hours, maybe 12 hours over months, like talking. And so when it came down to, okay, we're going to push forward here, we're going to order the cabinets, where I know I'm jumping ahead, but we were going to order the cabinets. And then my husband says, well, have you done any research? Like, do you know who the scale is? And, he had not spent the time, that I have spent, like building, where we've got a rapport and we have a trust, and I feel that. And I said, oh, Ralph, great. Thanks a lot. Now I have to go to Camille and say, my husband would like to ask some questions after I have this, what I consider a friendship and a rapport.
Well, yeah, we've been together for almost a year, like a month of time.
And I said, Ralph, this is going to be like really embarrassing. But Camille said, oh no, I do this all the time. Make sure your husband will schedule a Zoom meeting. He can ask me all the questions that he needs to ask. Everything about the cabinetry, all about the installation. You can talk to other people that I've worked with.
Yeah.
Before I could even like explain exactly this situation with my husband, you knew exactly how that would go, and that you were totally fully prepared and willing to like have that conversation with him as well, which we did, which went, of course, wonderfully. But I was like really nervous and embarrassed to like bring that up, because it's like saying, I don't trust you after all this
Yeah,
time.
but no, that's just
Yeah.
normal. That's a reasonable request,
Right. So
reasonable
actually
question.
it went really great.
That's great.
And then of course we felt even more comfortable because he was uncomfortable and on board and said, okay, sounds good. Let's do it. So that was again, another really helpful piece where you were completely on board with then, bringing my husband into the conversation and answering any questions that he might have. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that too.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so let's skip forward to the one of the most exciting parts. So you decide, so did you feel, or I'll just ask you this. So how did you feel knowing that you could get cabinets? Like I would help you no matter whether you got cabinets through me or not, bought a sink through me, anything. How did it feel to have the flexibility of being able to, with no pressure, buy your own stuff and I would still help you with the process? Like was that significant? Did you feel that? Did that make you feel better?
Mhm.
What's your feelings or impressions around that?
Well, first of all, I do think that adds to the element of trust that you would feel, that I would feel with you, because there was no pressure whatsoever to buy things from you. Of course, it made me want to even more. And because um, there was no pressure. And you've also talked about like the quality of your product, which is, your pride in that. But oh shoot, there was another important point that I had there. Like I said, the fact that there was no pressure. Oh, and the other part was that you empowered me to feel as though we will have no problem putting these together ourselves, that you will help us while we're putting things together, even when we're receiving them, opening them properly so they don't get damaged, and sitting on the table in a Zoom situation
Mhm.
while we're putting the first pieces together so you can help us out. So the fact that, again, there was no pressure to do it, and that we would be aided and empowered to be able to do it ourselves. And if we were going to take on this project, again, I know I've said this, it's a lot of money. We have to be able to save some money someplace, in order to make it a reality. If I didn't do this and get the cabinets through you and bought them locally, not wholesale, it would have made completing this project even harder, and maybe not feasible. So that did make it economically something that put it back into our wheelhouse a little bit, and letting us think, yes, you can do it.
Yeah.
You can do this. I'll help you through it. You don't have to, but it kind of made all the pieces make sense, that would be wiser for us to do it.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad that, because we talk about it all the time. So sometimes
Mhm.
I just like checking in, like, I don't want you to feel pressured. So I'm glad that you didn't feel that way.
No,
I
did
just
not.
do really like my own cabinets. but,
Right.
yeah. So, and how was it? So before we talk about ordering the cabinets, how was it knowing that the design, like did you feel a part of the design process?
Mhm.
Did you feel that I really listened to the look you were looking for, not just
Mhm.
I mean, I talk functionality all the time, but
Mhm.
the actual just vision? Did you feel that you were a part of that process?
Yes, definitely. Like I said, I talk about like, I need a tea cupboard. Can I put like a little drawer in here for tea? And even when if you advise me something different, you were very open to saying, okay, I don't know if you should put a drawer here, but I'll listen. And then you even gave me options too, if we didn't decide, let's do all these other pieces and we'll save these last couple of decisions that don't have to be made right now until we're more comfortable making that decision. That gave us, again, another level of comfort that you're making the right decision. So you didn't have to decide on us, like, for example, under the stove, we don't know what we're doing yet. I didn't have the stove top, so we didn't know what the size of the drawers or doors could be. So we decided to wait until we picked our appliances. But again, that gives you more comfort in ordering the things you are ordering, because you're waiting on the pieces you're not sure of. And that's another thing I think that I've learned too, is to be patient, that it doesn't all have to like come together in one day, whether it's in the design process or even in the house. Just get together the things and then add the final pieces so it's the best that you want it to be. But yes, I definitely felt and feel a part of the conversation. Even when I like maybe I'm a little more stubborn and say, no, I think I really want drawers. But you understand that everyone has like a little bit different idea of what they want it to look like, but you will tell me why maybe you think it shouldn't be that way. But even like moving things left to right, like, oh, I think we need this over there. Oh, we need a, cookie sheet, like spot, like right here. And even like down to like where the refrigerator is going to go and why there might be a traffic area here and why we wanted it in one spot. We had actual conversations about that, as opposed to you just putting the design up and saying, here you go, this is it. We had a big discussion about whether I wanted, like, on either side of my stove, two
Right.
doors or four doors to open, and how much space there would be. Talking about, like, literally it's 21 or 42 inches, and go look at those sizes and think about them. So we had a lot of detailed discussion and thought. I ran around with the measuring tape, still do, in all people's kitchens, measuring things to say, okay, it'll be about that size, so that I had a feel. Because when you look at it on paper and it says 21 or 42 inches, you have to literally go and check other people's cupboard doors to
Yeah.
see how that compares. And then you got to visualize how that will actually look. So we would come back to those unanswered questions and say, okay, this is what I decided. So I definitely had input.
Yeah, that's great. And I think, I can't even remember, because I know we've already ordered them, but did we do 2 or 4? I think we did 2.
We did 2.
2 doors on both
Yeah.
sides, because we
Mhm.
talked about it so many times.
We did too.
And I don't have your final drawing right in front of me, but yeah. And then was it funny that I was constantly telling you to pull your tape measure out and like look at the actual size with your
No,
tape
I
measure?
did that a lot. I took measurements of my daughter's whole entire kitchen. Then she moved, and then I did it again at her new kitchen.
Yeah.
To try and visualize what these actual sizes of the drawers and doors would be. I had, like I said, a small kitchen, so I don't have as many things to measure to see what do I like. I would go to like my mother-in-law's and measure how much space is there between the sink and the island. So I would know, is mine going to be bigger? Is it going to be smaller? I didn't want to be surprised. I want to know. Which then was why I still have to send you that videotape of how I marked it off with duct tape, like outside my house, and walked around like where the table would be and the island, because I want to have that feeling of, I don't want to be too surprised. I want to know what I'm going to get. So
that brings up one critical thing that you now know is different about me, is I don't do computerized drawings, right? So I'm trying to get people to break people of this need, this crutch to have a computerized drawing. So how do you feel about that now? Do you feel that you absolutely can do stuff to scale and accurate measurements off of a drawing, and using a tape measure and mocking stuff up so that you get the sense of the space? Do you now feel do you see why that's better? And how we were able to make really fast progress instead of just looking at computerized drawings to visualize?
Yeah, I think the only time I would have wanted one is when we had talked about that issue with the refrigerator, and I'm having a change in the ceiling height. And so that would be like one little spot that I would like to maybe have had an elevation. I think I have again, because I went around with my measuring tape at my own house, I think I did a pretty good job of visualizing it. So I think I'm pretty good at visualizing things. So it was okay. But I did take a lot of measurements and stand in a lot of kitchens, not a lot, half a dozen, thinking, in my family, thinking about, is this how my space will look? But because of that, I think I do have a really good idea of how it will look and measuring it out.
Versus if I had just done a computerized drawing for you, you would have just kept looking at that computerized drawing.
Right.
That's what most people do. They don't, it's like I'm kind of like reteaching you, relearning how to look at a space and train yourself to visualize something spatially. Right. That's sort of why I do the hand drawings. And also because the cost would be, it'd be several $1,000s for every single person. And then you wouldn't have joined.
Right.
And then we wouldn't have made any progress, because I would have been spending hours updating computer drawings constantly, instead of just, in a few minutes, we can sketch something out and I can show you on a piece of paper enough that you go, nope, I don't like that, or yes, that will work.
And I did measure a lot. I took pictures, like you would show me things on the screen. I would take a picture of it, and in my little file, I have a file, and then just write it all down, measure it all out. Sometimes I put it on graph paper. And literally took the measuring tape and measured, again, just so I would know. It's very strange. You think what 21 or 41 inches is, you do, but not when you go and look at it in relation to a cupboard. You need to look at cupboards that are smaller or bigger and say, oh, it's bigger than this, or oh, it's smaller than that. This is how much my space will be, and start looking at other people's kitchens, so you can get an idea of what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
See what you like about them and what you don't. But it definitely makes you, I guess, not work harder, but work smarter
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
try and figure it out.
I think that's true.
Mhm,
Work a little bit smarter in a
mhm,
little bit of a different way. It's using a
mhm,
different part of the brain maybe, but
mhm.
yeah, the sketching is the only way I could do this program because otherwise I couldn't work
That's
with 10
right.
people
Right.
and be doing sketches really quickly and then showing you and having those conversations. And it
Mhm,
is a different way of working, but
mhm.
it's a way, it's why I think it's needed in the market because it gets you
Right.
from being completely stuck to making some progress, right? Like
Well, you are
making
right though.
some
If
progress.
if it was $2,000, I would not have probably joined, because we didn't have the relationship yet, right? And so you're thinking, okay, I mean, honestly, like the price point was right for me because I knew what it cost to have a person come in just to tell me what I should do in my living room.
Mhm.
And a kitchen is so much more involved, that I thought it was absolutely well worth just having someone to bounce my ideas off of. Um, that I knew that I would, at least get that out of it, which I totally have.
Yeah,
But you're right. Like if you had to spend time plugging into the computer, it would have been so much more time consuming for each person. And it's
yeah,
very, very helpful when we're talking like in real time for you to just like throw a sketch together and put it up and say, this is how it could look. This is what I'm visualizing. And that's huge because you want to know. You don't want to wait. Like right now, I'm really tired of waiting. I don't mean tired of waiting for the kitchen. I'm waiting for my architect. And so I like to have like some visual information like right away. And so that was a benefit of that.
yeah. So we do that in one meeting.
Right.
We
That was,
sketch
yeah, the
the
very first
entire,
meeting.
yeah, and the entire kitchen. We sketch all four walls plus the
Yeah.
layout over with numbers, accurate numbers
Hmm.
in an hour and a half.
Hmm.
Like you just could never do that on
Right.
computer. It'd be weeks and weeks and weeks and it'd be way
Hmm.
more expensive. Um, so so up to this point, now you haven't even had your cabinets delivered yet,
Right.
which will be gorgeous, but up to this point, what would you have paid for what do you think the value of
Hmm.
what you've gotten so far is?
Will you charge me more if I tell you?
No, no, I'm just asking in general.
I'm kidding. Gosh. Hmm. Probably $2,500, for the consultation, um, the time that you've spent, the time that, I mean, and we're not done, right? I mean, we're not done. We still have a ways to go. So,
Yeah.
um, you don't know what you don't know until you start walking down, the path. Again, like we have been thinking about doing this for so many years that I have talked to cabinet people. I have talked to builders. I have had people in my house who've never gone forward. So the value that brought to the table to allow us to make those steps, um, I'm sure it's probably more than 2,500, just the time involved. So I hope that that isn't an insulting number, but
No, no,
certainly,
no, that's
certainly
no, that's
way
great.
more than the $500, honestly.
Yeah. What made you decide to go with me? You might not be able to remember, but why do you think you went with me after you'd already met with all these other people and you just didn't pull the trigger with them? What do you think it was about me that made you feel it might be possible this time?
I needed a coordinator. Everyone else was kind of like individuals, like doing their own little piece. And I needed someone to pull all the ideas together and to help me then work with all the other people. So I really needed a coordinator that would listen, to all the ideas that I had, pull them together, and then help me decide what to do first and give me frank opinions about the costs involved, or why I needed, I know so much more than I knew then, about materials and all the different cabinet types that I had no idea, like what I liked about one thing or the other, or inset cabinets versus not inset cabinets. And I just have learned so much that I did not know. You didn't know you didn't know.
Yeah,
You just started saying, oh, I kind of like that kitchen, but you don't know why or what you like about it. And so I really needed a coordinator.
nice. So you feel empowered.
Yes. Yeah.
Nice.
Hmm.
All right, so let's talk cabinets. So we decided to move forward. You got you had some rough ideas of what cabinets might be locally, right? And I gave you a bid for our cabinets, and so you decided to move forward with our premium RTA cabinets. We've placed the order, which is
Right.
super exciting. How was, and we're, they're in production. And you're getting ready to build the structure, right? Eventually that's coming. How was it like going through that process of figuring out the color, the style, the dimensions, like all the little details? Would you have felt comfortable like placing that order yourself? It's a large kitchen.
No.
Would you have
No.
felt comfortable like going to an RTA retailer online and inputting all that yourself?
Capital N-O, no. No, I absolutely would not. I knew that I wanted white cabinets. The island was always kind of in flux about how I wanted to do that. The week that we ordered was stressful because in this particular situation, there was a sale. And again, looking back, I know that empowered us to make a decision if we're going to go forward. This is before we said yes to the contractor. We made a decision based on that. We knew that we could save several $1,000s in addition to getting the cabinets at wholesale from you. You had a sale because you thought maybe prices were going up. And you said, listen, if you think you're going to do it, you're going to be able to save a couple $1,000s if you order in the next like 10 days. And so then my husband and I had to decide, okay, if we're really going to do this, we're really going to move forward, why would we not try and save as much money as we can? We're already, thinking we're going to get the cabinets wholesale. We might as well, if we're going to do it, why decide in 2 weeks? We got to decide now. So we said, okay, we're going to do it. We're going to sign the contract with the builder, which now means we have to order the cabinets so that we can save ourselves a little bit more money and get the discount that the sale was coming up. So that was a stressful week because I said to Camille, I don't think that I can make all these cabinet final decisions in a week. And of course she said, yes, you can. Yes, you can. So we did that. So that was, a little bit of an intense week because I also, and this was kind of my misunderstanding. I didn't know that I really needed to also kind of choose the exact model of the appliances so that we knew exactly what size the cabinets needed to be. So that kind of just added to that stress of that week. I think we wound up being like almost midnight, like our time of the final day, like placing the order, because I had to then go and find the appliances. And I had a general idea of what I wanted, but then specifically, we didn't have to order them, but specifically knowing what model so that we could pull the right numbers for the cabinets. So that was just making sure we had all the details for those cabinets. Like I said, had 2 doors or 4 doors. Are we going to do an inset on all the drawers? Little decisions at that point. They were all starting to get, they were more specific decisions that we had to make that week that I hadn't thought about before. Good thing we didn't have to decide the hardware that week too. So just all those little pieces that you're narrowing down to those final decisions. And we did have a little bit of, I changed my mind at the last minute about the island color. Just wasn't sure how that was going to work, and with the wood floors and just, a little bit with the color, I wasn't sure. So we decided to then go with all white. And then again, you helped me feel comfortable about that decision because you said it's still going to look beautiful. And you said, pull in all your accent pieces in that color that you want, in that wood tone that you were hoping to find. So that was very helpful because then I didn't feel like I was abandoning that look completely, because there were a lot of ways to incorporate it into the room after the fact. So once we kind of went through all those decisions, like I said, Monday to Friday that week, we made a lot of decisions. We talked a lot. You were available all the time, which on all honesty made me feel like, okay, I'm the most important person in her life this week. I'm sure that's not true, but you really make me feel that way. So that was great. Because there were a lot of decisions, and that big change at the end, where I think I may have surprised you and said, okay, I'm going to have a white island. So, then saying, is this an okay decision? What do you think? Am I making the wrong choice? And having you kind of have my back in that place too. I believe that if you thought that was a mistake, you would say, I don't think you should do this. And that's very helpful. So after that week was done though, and we ordered the cabinets, felt great. So it was all exciting stress, but still stress. I did cry in Best Buy, I will say, and hug the salesperson because that's just another story of just good humanity. I couldn't get a hold of my niece who works in the business. So this young man helped me out, even though he knew I was not going to be able to order them from him and he would not be getting the commission, but he helped me through all the decisions. And I was really appreciative because I was in a time crunch and he helped me out. And by the time I thanked him, I was, after that week of trying to make all the decisions, I was pretty appreciative. And he called me back the next week too, to see if everything went okay. So
Oh, that's
what a great
lovely.
guy.
I love
But people, there are definitely people out there that are willing to help and in a timely manner. So I finally got a hold of my niece and got all that stuff ordered as well. And she was really helpful. But once I got through that, like I said, it was all like happy stress, but it is still stress because you're making big decisions. But being able to call you, and I did many times, texted, called, will this cabinet fit? Will this appliance fit? Learning about cutout dimensions and looking at the manufacturer's specifications, things that, again, I would have had no idea like how to do that. It would have been very, very difficult. Once I got through that process and we ordered the cabinets, huge relief.
Yeah, that's great. That makes me, that's like some of the funnest stuff, but you're right. It is sometimes stressful. Do you feel that sometimes having those deadlines though are there, for myself included, they're a requirement because we just, as humans, we'll just keep procrastinating because we're nervous, we're worried about something. So sometimes deadlines, I mean, they work for me. That's something that happened with my Pinky's door. It was about to go up like $4,000 for the 2023 pricing, whatever that was 3 months ago. They were already starting that. And I was like, I'm going to have to bite the bullet and buy this thing.
Right.
So, because I
definitely helped.
waited. Yeah.
And I was happy. I mean, we made the decision. I saved money by making the decision. Once we did it, the stress is in not knowing.
Yeah.
Once you make the decision and move forward, you always kind of wanted to do it. It was just, you're afraid to do it. Yeah. So once you actually then do it, it's pretty exciting.
That's good. That's great. Yeah. Well, so it was, you would say it's been very helpful and comforting to have somebody that's truly kind of at your beck and call, kind of someone you can call anytime something starts to happen.
Right.
Useful information that's specific to you, that applies to your job. Flexible, right? Flexible. Yep. And a coach, right? You would say that I'm really like a coach on your side, not a mean
Yes, I do feel that way. That's the perfect description. Yeah.
That's great.
And all the details that I know are boring to other people. Even, I don't think they're boring to you, but even if they are, you don't act like it.
Yeah, no, they're not boring to me. I
don't think they are.
My passion is kitchens.
Right. No, I mean, so all those little details that other people really don't want to hear about, that you're trying to decide between, well, like I said, whether it's, are you going to do all the inset and all the drawers and the doors? People, my family does not care. They're never going to even notice. But you care. And when I'm walking through those decisions, you're very helpful and patient in listening.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Well, so, we're kind of waiting for the room to be built and the cabinets are, in production. So we'll do another meeting when we unpack everything and talk about it, how exciting that is, and get some stuff installed. But for now, like up to this point, like what would you say to some other woman who might be where you were a year ago? What would you say to her about this program and how it might help her?
Well, I think it's funny because when people ask me like how I was doing this, and I tell them I met Camille online and on Instagram, I'm sure they really can't believe it. So I feel very fortunate that I somehow stumbled upon, the ad that I saw. And again, I do think Camille in that initial program that I said, it was a good chunk of time, like live 2.5 hours. There were probably 6 ladies in that 2-day kind of webinar, like a free webinar to kind of see what you were all about. Who spends 5 hours like talking to women about their questions with no obligation whatsoever. There was just an immediate sense of trust and knowledge, on your part. And it was a pretty calming feeling. I felt really, really ready, like to do it like right away. Like I said, I enjoyed the first day. It was probably 2.5 hours. I couldn't wait to the second day. And, there were ladies also involved, like maybe 6 other ladies that we were talking. And it was very personal, felt very personal, very real. So it definitely gave me the confidence that I could move forward with this project, and that I would get answers that I had been wanting, and that I needed someone to help me with. Like I said, I needed a coordinator. I felt like it was almost like, not that I was meaning it to be an interview, but in a way, it was like a 5-hour opportunity for you to tell us what you could do for us. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I need. So it was a pretty easy decision, actually, after that first initial like webinar that you had put on.
Yeah. Nice.
So it was easy.
That's great.
Mhm.
Yeah, what was I gonna say about the challenges? Yeah, the webinar, those are really fun to do. I
Mhm.
love meeting new people from like all over the country.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, well, good. Well, I'm glad that that did its job, right? You got to know me a
Yeah,
little bit, and you would recommend that people join the program
I
no matter
would,
kind of
because
where they're at.
the value of the design information, and again, just the information about cabinetry in general, um, and how, your philosophy, you're designing from the inside out, where we don't just want a kitchen. We want a kitchen that's pretty, but we want a kitchen that's very easy for us to work in, that meets the ideas that we have in mind for our kitchen, that not every kitchen is going to suit every person. So you made that very clear too, that your goal was to set up a kitchen for each of us, based on how we wanted to use our kitchen and what our goals were, in our family life, kitchen life, what kind of things we needed to do. So that alone, just that alone, like I was well worth that, just to kind of get me on the right path, pull my ideas together. Um, I don't know. I really don't know how do people do it without someone kind of guiding that path. It's like a general contractor of your kitchen, right? But we have great input, and you're also like, I've learned a lot. I've learned like so much. Um, so I think that, like, again, that teamwork, the education that's been provided, and you just kind of looking into my ideas and kind of pulling them together. So yeah, anyone, if you're not sure, like I said, I would have no concerns, because like I said, I really do feel like we're friends. Like, we live far away, but someday we're going to meet in person. Because you build a connection there. You really do build a connection. So, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah, that's fabulous.
Yeah.
And so my last question is,
Mhm.
what do you think you would have done, kind of like before, if you'd never met me? What do you think you would, where would you be now, do you think?
I could say pretty confidently we probably wouldn't have made a decision yet, um, because it's a big decision. So we probably would still be kind of waiting, still be, trying to make those decisions, because I literally had thought, do we need an interior designer like to help us? But yeah, actually, like in retrospect, I just think that that's not specific enough to what the kitchen space is. I'm sure they can do it, but yet your knowledge is so specific to everything from the countertops to the cabinetry to the layouts to the colors, that's your world. And I think that for what I needed, like, I didn't just want an interior designer that would, I wanted someone specifically for the kitchen. And I didn't know who to talk to. I literally talked to an architect. I talked to a builder. I talked to interior designers. And I apparently never thought that any one of those individuals would be the person to tie it all together. So having literally like a general contractor from the kitchen standpoint has enabled me to move forward in that area. So that's what I needed, if that answers the question. But yeah, I don't think that we would have moved forward, because I was obviously talking to other people, but I just didn't feel connected enough. It definitely didn't feel connected enough to anybody else. So I think that that's quite an important thing too. If you don't have a connection, how do you think that they're gonna be working in your best interest?
Mhm.
So that I think is really important too. Just having a casual connection with people, it just seems like they're not going to understand, the decisions I'm trying to make. And it's kind of personal. All the decisions that you're making, whether it's the financial part or the design part or the family part, the life part, a lot's happened and a lot of decisions have had to be made. A lot of things have happened. So having that personal part, I think, is probably one of the biggest things. Obviously all the knowledge that you have is like super important, but if I didn't have that connection and trust value, I don't think it would be the same.
Yeah, that's great.
And I don't think I would have moved forward yet. I really don't.
So when I say that it's kind of like what I do is kitchen therapy, does that like ring a bell?
It is 100% the right thing. So both of them are so apropos. Like, you are the kitchen coach because you are literally holding our hand and cheerleading us and empowering us to do things. And you also are kitchen therapy because there are so many parts that can be a little bit stressful and filled with angst and making these little decisions. And you kind of take that part out of it. You're going to lay it out. This is, if you do it this way, it'll be this. If you do it this way, it'll be this. If you do it this way, it'll be this. Okay, well, now I can make a more educated decision. And also I feel, because of that trust, that you will tell me this is going to look terrible, don't do it. Or, these two will be fine. You can do either one. So you have to have that trust that you're going to be honest. Even, it doesn't mean we always agree, like I said, a drawer or a door or where things might go. But at the end, I think we definitely come together and say, okay, I totally see how that will be useful and appropriate in your space. And that's a discussion that's easy to have, because I appreciate your expertise. And I also trust that you're looking out for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's, people, I say this all the time, kitchens are just so damn emotional. There's so much emotionally going on with the decisions, the ramifications, the actual life stuff, your dad passing, like, I can't ignore that stuff because it's where you're at. The kitchen is like, you're in the middle of that storm on top of all this other stuff happening. So, they're highly emotional because they just affect so many things. The money is emotional, right? It's a lot of money. Like, yeah. So I'm glad that you appreciate that and that's coming through, because that's like a big part of the brand, or a big part of what I want to communicate, is just that I am there emotionally for you. Like, I actually really get it. Like, it's not just something I say.
No, it is really true. And there are times that you do think like, oh gosh, what have we done? This is so much. We're crazy. So it's good to have somebody else in your corner saying, it's all going to be okay. Don't worry, it'll be fine. Because you're going to have, like, it's a big project. I know I've said that a lot, but it is. So you do kind of say, oh boy, here we go. We've done it now. It's a point of no return. Like, we're moving forward. But if you felt like you were in it by yourself without that knowledge and support, it would be much, much harder. So yeah, I'm hoping that you'll be there when I want to do the bathroom.
Of course I will. Yeah.
Even though it's not a kitchen. But yeah, it really does give you that stability, courage. And, when you start to like, oh, what have I done? You're like, it's going to be good. It's going to be fine. And you need that. You really do need that, because there are phases that the projects go through that you kind of need that, you need that support.
Yeah, that emotional support. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you, and we just have so much fun talking all the time, and I just appreciate your time and honesty and willingness to share.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
What your experience has been so far, and yeah, I'm just really looking forward to, when they break ground and start putting up that structure. That's going to be like a really fun.
I know we're close to that. They're waiting to get the final drawings, which I'm waiting for any day, so they can pull the permit. So to build. So I'm pretty excited about that.
That's
awesome. We got to do that soon, because it's getting colder. But it's going to be 70 this weekend, so I guess we still have some time. But yeah.
Awesome. All right, Hen. Well, I appreciate it. I will stop the recording. So if you